Though freedom is never really free, we yearn and strive for government protecting our liberty.
Welcome to another episode of Your Right to Know. I'll be your host tonight, Andrew Couture, and tonight we have two very special guests, Bonnie Johnson and Marty Lamb. And tonight we're going to be discussing the Diehl Her Out PAC. Good evening.
Hello.
How are you two today? First of all, Bonnie and Marty are co-directors of a newly found official PAC called Diehl Her Out, or also Dump Warren. Can you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I have been involved in, as far as the political world goes, I've been involved in the politics for especially the last 10 years. Got really involved in Scott Brown when he was coming in and caught the bug. Again, I had been involved earlier and caught the bug and really wanted to make a difference. So I have I worked with him, and I've gone on to become the Worcester Republican State Committee, and I've been the Massachusetts Field Director for Donald Trump, and now I'm co-chairman with Marty of the Diehl Her Out PAC.
Excellent. Marty, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Briefly, and like Bonnie did just quickly on political, really got my feet wet with the Scott Brown campaign back in 2009, ran for Congress against Jim McGovern. I was the Republican nominee and won a nice 5-way primary victory. Of course, Jim got a few more votes than I did in the final, but he said it was the toughest race he had, toughest challenge he's ever had. Ran for state rep out in my district in the Holliston area. I'm now the state committee man for my district for the Mass GOP. Had my feet wet with the tank the gas tax, the rollback, was one of the co-chairs and sponsors of that initiative. And you only have a half-hour show, so I'll leave it.
Well, first of all, thank you for saving us from the gas tax. That was definitely going to be a mess. Marty, I know a lot of people have heard a lot about PACs, and depending on what side of the table the PAC is, they're either good or they're bad. Can you explain exactly what a PAC is?
Very simply, a PAC is a federal, well, we're a federal PAC. The state PAC, similar concept, is a mechanism for either supporting a candidate or a policy or challenging a candidate or a policy under federal law. And we are a federal, what they refer to as a super PAC. No, contrary to what Elizabeth Warren says, that we're an extreme right-wing, dark money organization, we actually have to file with the Federal Election Commission all of the donations and expenditures, so it is a public record. And the only big thing that's unique about a PAC versus a candidate, we can't have any direct contact with a candidate or candidate's committee as far as who is supporting. So for example, I can't talk to, Bonnie can't talk to Geoff Diehl because we have a parallel PAC that is supporting him in addition to fighting Elizabeth Warren.
Now, why is it that, what's the reasoning for not being able to, talk with any particular candidate?
We can say hello.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it's not like we can't speak with him, but we cannot talk politics.
We can't coordinate. So if you see the ads on TV, paid for by the Diehl Her Out PAC, not affiliated with or coordinated with any political candidate, that disclaimer, we have to say, we can't pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Geoff, can we do this?"
What do you think about this idea?
Right. It's a no-no. Okay. And on the same side, in theory, the other side can't do it either. So the large super PACs that are funded by people like George Soros, who are supporting Elizabeth Warren, in theory, shouldn't be picking up the phone and talking to her.
You mean the dark money that she's getting from,
exactly.
from Soros is what
and
you're
a lot
saying.
More than, unfortunately, we hope to get.
Understandable.
Although if any of your listeners are out there, dealherout.com, donation link, we'd be thrilled. $5, $10. We know you can't do hundreds of millions like George Soros.
It's a grassroots
Yes, very much so.
Definitely.
Very much how Judge Moore down in Alabama won his race.
Exactly.
So, do PACs directly give financial support to candidates, or do candidates receive other supports from a PAC?
No. Well, at least the type of PAC we are, we cannot write a check to a candidate, nor can we take a check from a candidate. But we can take unlimited sources of funds from individuals and or corporations. So, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but the Citizens United case that the liberals claim is the end of society, that corporations aren't people. No, corporations are owned by people, and corporations can donate to a PAC.
So, what is the goal of the Diehl Her Out PAC, again, otherwise known as the Dump Warren?
Bonnie? You wanna...
The goal is to educate the voters and expose her record, or her lack of a record, in Massachusetts. What has she done for Massachusetts? As far as I can tell, it's a big fat goose egg. Now,
there may be 4 candidates planning to run for the U.S. Senate on the Republican ticket. One you mentioned is Geoff Diehl. At what point does Diehl Her Out PAC select a candidate to support on the Republican ticket?
Well,
we already have.
We already have. Yes.
I mean, we are as the name says, Diehl Her Out, D-E-A-L. It's a pun for Geoff Diehl.
Okay.
And yeah, we definitely, while we can't work with him, we can support him, and that's who we.
Right.
All money that comes into the Diehl Her Out PAC will go to fighting Elizabeth Warren.
Well, thank God for that.
Yes.
It's probably obvious
for
that...
Geoff Diehl.
Right.
For Geoff Diehl.
Right.
It's probably obvious that Ms. Warren will not have a Democratic challenger, yet there are at least 4 Republican candidates already announcing their interest in running for the U.S. Senate on the Republican ticket. Do you believe that the primary election within the Republican Party helps or hurts the Republican candidate who will eventually have to face Elizabeth Warren?
Now, I think having run, like I said, I was in a 5-way Republican primary running for Congress. I think a primary has its pros and its cons. First of all, from experience, running in a primary really pushed me to perform and to learn how to meet the challenges of an opponent, and how to speak, how to debate, and move forward. I think it's a healthy process. The downside is, of course, fundraising, because if there is a contested primary, when a candidate is making calls for donations, my experience was, a Republican primary? What's that? Maybe I won't write a check until after the primary. In Massachusetts, the primaries are very late.
Right.
They're in September for a November election. So the downside is it makes it tougher on the fundraising aspect. So, I'd rather it was just Geoff without any challenges, because he's a friend. I support him, and
so
I'd
basically,
love to see
what
him.
you're saying is does primary elections just waste precious campaign money, or does it bring more negative attention to Elizabeth Warren?
Well,
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I think it can help bring more negative attention to her if the candidates are playing it right. If the candidates are all talking about the lack of Elizabeth Warren's actions in Washington, she's done nothing for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That's what we're helping do, is expose that. Like Bonnie said, that's our goal, is to expose her lack of track record. Our votes, like her vote against the 21st Century Cures Act, a bill that would actually, a bill supported by then President Obama, that was voted 98-2 in the Senate in favor. Elizabeth Warren, along with Bernie Sanders, who were the only 2 against it, that would have brought funding into Massachusetts for medical research, opioid addiction research, and helped our biomed industries. But Elizabeth Warren had a grandstand politically, because that's more important than the people of Massachusetts.
Well, it seems like she's not even representing the people of Massachusetts. She's all over the country. I mean, when Kid Rock, and I find his wording a little interesting when he says, hey, maybe I'll run. immediately, it was like the following week, she went out there to support whatever Democratic candidate was there because of his popularity in his particular state. It just seems like she wants to represent, the liberal, the far left, rather than the people who actually.
I think a big point that the PAC has to make is that 2018 is about Elizabeth Warren getting elected so she can run for president. It is not about Elizabeth Warren getting elected so she can represent Massachusetts. She's been AWOL for the last 4.5 years. Mm-hmm. Now she's doing a few town halls so she can say, oh, I've been here 4 or 5 times, but she hasn't been here much. And maybe she'll be here a little bit over the next year, but we know what's going to happen if she wins. She will be gone. There will be no representation for us.
And why should anything change?
Why should anything change?
She's already launched her presidential campaign, but for making it official. So why would she stop if she were reelected to the Senate?
I want someone who's going to represent our state in Congress, in the Senate. And I think Geoff Diehl he has just proven himself. He is such a man of integrity. And we have just watched him grow and become politically savvy and stand by his principles even when other people didn't want him to. And as Marty talked about, the gas tax. I mean, why don't you talk a little, this is an
first of all,
thing.
and in case any of the viewers aren't aware, a few years ago, the Massachusetts legislature, controlled by the Democrats, voted as part of a tax package to raise our gas tax and annually have the gas tax go up automatically without a vote whatsoever within the legislature. I was one of the co-sponsors along with Geoff Diehl, a few others, and we decided, a lot of people decided that's not right, taxation without representation. We did a ballot initiative, grassroots ballot initiative, first of all, to get the question on the ballot, and then it successfully won. Actually got a large number of votes over Charlie Baker in the gubernatorial race that year.
Well over 1 million votes.
It blew him away as far as the votes. And we did it strictly on grassroots efforts. We didn't pay for a single signature like a lot of ballot initiatives do. And the establishment, Mass GOP, were all warning Geoff Diehl, if you do this, it will ruin your career. You'll never get anywhere. This will never happen. Just lay low and don't make waves. And he basically thumbed his nose at the establishment and I have to do what's right for the people. And then we have, some other candidates running for the Republican ballot. A political consultant who the Mass GOP is pushing, and then the guy who paid for and sponsored, Thurston Kingston III, stepped down for the Republican Party, became an independent, helped basically a Democrat run as an independent in Utah, Evan McMullen, with the goal of stealing votes from Donald Trump. If he got his way, Hillary Clinton would be president now. And now this guy, the Mass GOP, is trying to run for U.S. Senate.
What has he done for Massachusetts ever?
So I'm with the guy that was out in the trenches working for the people.
Now, can you discuss Elizabeth Warren's progressive vision for changing America? Are these visions out of step with the average American voters, especially in her own Democratic Party? She seems to be to the extreme left.
She clearly is in the extreme left wing of her party, without any question. She represents the fringe elements. She makes people like Jim McGovern, like Barack Obama, look like moderates. If you look at where she stands, she's to the left of Bernie Sanders. The extreme. She is too far extreme for the voters of Massachusetts, and she doesn't have a clue about real life reality, what the people need. Bonnie, if you want to touch on the comment she made.
So I am just really, really enraged at a comment that she made recently to Geoff Couture, and it's just come through. It's just happened this week, I do believe. And he was interviewing her, and he asked her how come, she's part of the 1%, and she's saying she represents the 99% of Americans. I consider myself part of the 99%, just to make sure everybody there. I wish I had $1 million bankroll somewhere, but
I think we all do.
I know exactly.
I'd
But
settle for $100 right now.
I don't live in a $2 million house in Cambridge, and I don't have all of the elitist things that Elizabeth Warren has. And so he was asking her, how do you think you can represent the 99%? And she talked about how she had very tough beginnings, with her father being this and her brothers having to go into the service. And you know, a lot of us have those stories.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have made it. I don't consider myself not having made it because I'm not a millionaire. But she went on to say that, and I'm going to just quote her directly, that the opportunities are not available in America today to make it. I so disagree with that.
Oh, I completely disagree with that. But what do you think she was trying to say in
Well,
that?
her opportunities where she made her fortune was working with banks and flipping foreclosure properties. You know, houses that were sold out for the people, and now with bank reform, you know, the opportunity of flipping foreclosures doesn't exist the way it did in her day when she made her fortune.
Not to the extent of what.
But if you look at the inner cities, where truly there are problems, where there is the culture, an inbreeding of the poverty culture and the welfare culture, whose fault is that? That's the fault of the Democrats who run those cities and states, that the people can't get ahead. Just throwing a check to them, welfare, is not how you help somebody get ahead. You create jobs, you create a business environment to create the jobs. You clean up the drugs, the corruption,
and in 4.5 years, where has Elizabeth Warren been?
Hollywood, New York, raising money.
Not Massachusetts, and not solving the problems of America. And I can't imagine her as a U.S. Senator anymore, nor can I imagine her as president.
So do you think she's too far left, even for a Democratic voter?
Yes.
I do. I actually know a lot of Democratic voters, and I come from a family of union workers, and they talk about how people cannot stand her.
Well, I mean, God knows every time she opens up her mouth, I'm just doing one of these. Like, I can't believe that my senator is saying stuff like that.
I think she has endeared herself to the extreme fringe of her party. She is a cult figure for that extreme left wing of the party. But if you talk to, the radicals, but if you talk to the average person in Massachusetts, and most people are registered unenrolled, they're not Democrats, they're not Republicans, or even for the most part, Democrats, they think she's an extremist. And I truly think now is the time for a person who cares about the people, who happens to be a Republican, to take that seat and to represent the people. Scott Brown called this the people's seat. It is. It belongs to us.
It belongs to us.
Unfortunately, she's got a very large war chest. I think we have to agree that it's close to $12 million. She's not going to be easily beaten. Is it always true that the candidate with most money wins the election?
Absolutely not. I'll use the gas tax rollback as a prime example. We were outspent, was it 11 to 1 or 31 to 1? Ridiculous proportions of money spent by construction industries and unions against us. We won. Look at Jeb Bush versus Donald Trump in the Republican primary, and even Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump in the election. Money doesn't necessarily buy an election.
Well, you can also equate that to the recent election again in Alabama with Judge Moore versus his first name escapes me. I just remember his last name because that's what he is, Strange. I believe it was like $9 million that was pumped into Strange's campaign fund. Meanwhile, Judge Moore had a fraction of that, and he still won against Strange.
Americans are smart people.
Right. I think people are starting to wake up and understand, what's going on.
As more goes out of your paycheck every day to be spent on programs that haven't proven of value or worth. I mean, if all the money we spend, by now we shouldn't have poverty. We shouldn't have a lot of these social issues that we continue to have, and it's even bigger than before.
Well,
but not to downplay the need for money. Again, dealherout.com, there is a donate link. $5, $10, 25, 25,000.
You can't do
we
it
need everything.
You can't do it on pennies.
Right, just on my good looks alone. We'll do it. On Bonnie's maybe, but not mine.
Now, Bonnie, as a woman, why are you not supporting a woman candidate?
Oh my gosh. I guess
I ask that question because of what Michelle Obama has recently said, in regards to people who voted for Donald Trump. If women didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, then they weren't voting for themselves.
How horrible is a statement is that?
It's absolutely terrible.
I am an intelligent American, and I look at the issues, I look at the candidates, and I make a decision. In this case, I look at Elizabeth Warren, I look at Geoff Diehl, I look at Elizabeth Warren, angry, there's nothing appealing to me about what she says or how she looks or what she does. Frankly, I want to teach people how to fish. I want them to grow. What has she done to help the inner cities grow? Because I think that's a huge part of the issue. And so I'm going to always look at the candidates. And I think a lot of other women proved that they will too.
So Elizabeth Warren represents the most liberal and progressive wing of the Democratic Party. I think we can all agree to that. There are hundreds of thousands of Democrats in Massachusetts that don't recognize this far, far left wing, or as I call them, the Antifa people. Most notably identified by Senator Warren, Sanders, Schumer, Representative Pelosi, Waters, among many others, and wonder where the Democratic Party of John F. Kennedy has gone. Do you think that many longtime Democratic voters have concerns that Elizabeth Warren, where she's taking the Democratic Party?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I truly believe that, and I get that based on even the presidential election. And I was standing out at the polls, and I was talking to people holding my Donald Trump sign up, and people would come over to me, we'd chat, and I was speaking to a union driver for UPS. And he said, I want to let you know that all of the guys back at the center there, we're all voting for Donald Trump. The union saying to vote the union, Democrat, but we can't vote for that. We're voting for jobs. We're voting for the candidate. We're not voting for the party anymore. This isn't my parents' party of John F. Kennedy. It's not even the party of Ted Kennedy. Who I totally disagree with just about everything Ted Kennedy stood for, but he actually believed he was doing the best he could for the people, the constituents. Elizabeth Warren doesn't give about the people. She truly only cares about getting herself into the White House, and she'll do anything to do that in spite of the needs of the state.
No, I'm agreeing with you because my parents are the old Jack Kennedy Democrats. And every now and again I hear something that comes out of my mouth, even though she badmouths Donald Trump, and of course I stick up for him. She'll try to badmouth him, but then every now and again I hear something that comes out that sounds almost like a Republican, conservative Republican. So I understand.
I feel like my parents will never admit it, but they'll agree on the issues.
So are these more moderate Democratic voters looking for somebody else to get behind?
I believe so. That's what I've been told by a lot, and Marty's just
I believe so
confirming
too.
that also.
And again, I've spoken to people I know, friends, co-workers, whoever, who are Democrats, born and bred Democrats, that have said Elizabeth Warren is too extreme and they could never vote for her.
So one of your efforts is to show that Ms. Warren has not been to Massachusetts in several years, spending months on end in D.C., traveling throughout the U.S.
She's been on a book tour.
Book tours.
Selling her book
Which we
to
know
make
is
her personal millions off of us.
And we know that's always the first step in running for president, is the book tour. Look at Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama.
Anybody who has run, even on the Republican side, they come out with a book. I believe Mitt Romney came out with a book.
In political circles, it's called earned media. I did something to get on TV. And I didn't have to pay for the time.
So, why don't we wrap, because our show's nearly over, why don't you wrap up and, give us a little bit of information as to how people can donate to PAC.
As I've said a few times, and I'll say it again, Diehl.com is the website. We also have a Facebook page, which is Diehl Her Out PAC is the Facebook page, and there is a donate link on either or both. Again, we're grassroots. $5, $10, nothing is too small. $1 or $2 if that's all you have. We are unlimited, unlike a federal campaign, so if you want to give more, $25,000, $100,000, we won't turn it down. We will
use it well.
Every nickel we raise is being spent to defeat Elizabeth Warren and to help Geoff Diehl, and only being spent in Massachusetts. Unlike some other PACs that are working in other states on other issues too.
Excellent. Well, that's the end of our show. We'd like to thank you for watching Your Right to Know and sitting here with the FRCC. As we leave you, we want you to remember that your local, city, and town Republican committee is the only grassroots organization that supports and holds dear your liberty, your constitutional rights, and your conservative values. We encourage you to join. Why? Because to us, GOP stands for growth, opportunity, prosperity, and because we always stand for freedom. Thank you.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might.